Hello and welcome to Good Clean Gaming. I'm your host Shalindo, and today we're playing more Euro Truck Simulator 2. So, I did make the 230% run. It did work successfully, but I talked about something in that video that, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have talked about. It had to do with a former job, and there was nothing really bad about it. It was just my former employer probably would not have appreciated me sharing a story about it, or at least I don't know how my former employer might have reacted to it. I'm sure it would have been fine, but nothing, like I said, nothing truly negative. But in respect to my former employer, I went ahead and cut that episode out. And since this is going so fast, I figured I'd instead of editing the entire video or redoing the drive or anything like that, you guys could just take my word for it and understand that I did make the delivery. And be careful what you say. Don't want to make anybody mad at you, even if it's only a very, very, very minuscule chance of it happening. Da 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 da. Which leads me to a story, I guess. In this day and age of Twitter, I can't believe how old that makes me sound. In this day and age of Twitter, please, please, please be careful. Why? Well, it's not just Twitter, it's actually Twitter, Facebook. And there's nothing wrong with, let me just preface this by saying there's nothing wrong with, appropriate use of social media. I'm not saying social media bad and, horrible for society. I'm not saying anything like that. That's not the purpose of that's not what I'm getting at here. What I'm gonna talk about is it's dangerous, and not well, it is dangerous in the oh no, they might stalk me or might find me or might give too much information. All that you guys know all that. That's all common knowledge. It is dangerous to post your personal information, your address, and things like, oh, I'm out of town today, and people all of a sudden have your address and know, oh, you're out of town today. That can be a kind of dangerous thing, so just be careful with all that, obviously. But the main thing I wanted to focus on was be careful what you say on there, in the terms of like liability. I know people will frequently talk, yeah, I have freedom of speech in this country and yada yada. Freedom of speech protects you from government, prevents the government from basically silencing your freedom of speech. It doesn't prevent other individuals, and in a lot of cases, other companies from doing the same. So if you say something on Twitter or Facebook about your employer, your current employer especially, and they don't like it, you can be fired. That's probably the best. That's probably the best outcome of them not liking your social media talking about them. You could be fired. You could. Some of the worst examples, you could be found guilty of or be taken to court and sued for things like libel, and so people may not be familiar with libel. So the idea is, if you say something about someone else that is untrue and it hurts their reputation, or you say something about a company that is untrue and it damages their sales, you can be sued for libel. So, lying about someone else's product, or lying about, or even just saying something that you heard, that turns out not to be true. These things can get you in a lot of trouble. And you might immediately say, oh, I'm not going to get in trouble because I have freedom of speech. It doesn't work like that. Like I said, that's for government, not for companies and individuals. People get sued all the time for things they say on Twitter and Facebook. And another thing, maybe you didn't say anything necessarily bad, but it could be that, let's say your company's working on some new project that is secret, it hasn't been made public yet, and it could make the company a lot of money, and their competitors don't know about it. If you go and you tell your friend on social media, or anywhere really, about this special project, special super secret project, and then that ends up getting out, and especially on social media, it's really easy. But if you tell your friend and then it gets out to another friend and to another friend and eventually finds its way to a competitor or a trader or, you know, a stock trader or something like that, you get in a lot of trouble. You could damage your company to the point where they lose a ton of money. And I know a lot of people like, well, they have enough money and they don't pay me enough and this, that, and the other. They're going to have a lot less money to pay you if you end up ruining a huge business for them, you know? If they're going to make, you know, millions of dollars, let's say they have the potential of making like $1 million or $2 million a year on something, and you let out a secret and all of a sudden a competitor gets a hold of it, now your company's not going to make nearly as much money. Guess where they're going to look first to cut costs? It's not going to be them, it's going to be you. So just kind of cautionary tale, word of warning. I took a long time to get on social media for reasons like these, for the dangers, for the potential for harm of myself or others. I avoided it a lot. When used appropriately, it can be a great tool to keep in touch with friends and all that. It can also be very dangerous. Be thoughtful of what you say and careful about who you say it to, and if it's public, it is public forever. Just think about it as one good rule of thumb I have is whenever I talk to anyone, whenever I type an email or type a message to anyone, and whenever I share anything on the internet especially, but this goes for any interaction, I pretend like everyone can hear it, especially those that are involved in whatever topic of conversation I'm talking about. So if I'm talking about, you know, if I were to talk about my boss, or if I were to talk about a coworker, or a friend, or a relative, I don't always succeed. I'm not saying I'm like, oh, so good, you need to do this and do that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to say I try, and we all do our best to try, right? I try to think about if everyone else were listening, like everyone else were reading, even the people I don't want to read are reading or listening, and then that controls what comes out of my mouth, and that controls what gets written down and what gets shared with people. And it turns out it's a really, really good way to stay out of trouble and stay out of, you know, problems with friends and stuff like that. Works out very well. You never really regret saying something about a person as much as when they hear about it. When you're saying it, you're like, oh, it's okay, it's a secret. I'm telling my best friend. But eventually someone's going to hear about it. And eventually it may get you in a lot of trouble, and then you really feel bad about it, but then it's too late. You can't take it back then. Also, word of warning, we're getting kind of close to our delivery point. Actually, no, we're not. We need to make a U-turn. I missed my delivery. Talking too much. I'm gonna make a U-turn here. Yes, get out of the way, truck. Seriously, truck? Why do you do this? So, little word of warning, since we're at the delivery location up ahead. If you say something like, if you hear somebody say, this person told me not to tell you, but I'm going to tell you, but you have to keep it a secret. Or if you say, someone told me not to tell you, but I'm going to tell you, but you have to keep it a secret. There's an irony in that statement, I think, that, and the other person can see that, then they'll immediately make that judgment of, well, they weren't supposed to tell me, so they can't get mad at me if I tell someone else. And they'll tell someone else, don't tell that person that I told you, it's a secret, but here's what they told me not to tell you. And that's how stuff gets around. You can't be a keeper of secrets. It just doesn't work. Right down here, I think. This is really rainy, really dark, and I can't find anything. Oh, 7%. Sawdust delivery. Good work. How is that good work? That was horrible work. Yeah, hope that wasn't too preachy. Just want to, share some insights or some outsights, some all-around sights. Hope you enjoyed the view. There should be a subscribe button somewhere on the screen. Feel free to click that if you want to see future videos like this. Thank you for watching, and remember, keep it clean.